All right, Friends of the Undead, we're here at Wizard World Madison Comic-Con, and we're speaking to comic book writer and former editor-in-chief of Marvel Comics, Mr. Tom DeFalco. Tom, thanks for joining us on Bordello of Horror.
It's my pleasure. You know, a little horror goes a long way.
So, when you were growing up as a kid, what were your favorite comic books?
My very favorite were the Marvels, obviously. I love Spider-Man, the Mighty Thor, and the Fantastic Four. In that particular order, those three, always got to me.
So, did you know that you wanted to be a comic book writer at an early age? Is that something that happened later on in life?
It's something that happened later on in life. As a young kid, I knew I wanted to be a writer. Storytelling was somehow in my blood. I remember being in the second grade and I started making my own comic strips and stuff. But when I was growing up, there were only, two good comic book writers. It was Robert Kanigher, who was at DC, and Stan Lee. And I figured, those are the two good guys. If you're not, Mr. Kanigher or Mr. Lee, there's no place for you. So it never occurred to me that, a guy like me could ever grow up and write comic books. As I got older, went to college, they introduced, the newer writers. Well, newer writers to me, Denny O'Neil, Roy Thomas, Jerry Conway. Just a lot of immense talents came in. But again, it didn't really occur to me when I was growing up. I was going to try to be the next Edgar Rice Burroughs. I never thought about being trying to write Spider-Man or any of those sort of things. I thought my job was to create other universes.
So, how did you actually get your start in the industry? What was some of your first jobs that you had?
Well, I got into the industry in a very weird way. When I graduated college, I ended up sending out resumes, trying to get a job in publishing, and even magazines that I had sold short stories to said to me, "Well, if you're a writer, you don't get a job. You just keep writing stories." But my parents said, "No, you have to get a job." And at some point I thought, oh man, I should send out, resumes to, all the kind of things that I'm interested in. So I ended up sending them to a couple of comic book companies. And to my surprise, Archie Comics got back in touch with me. They had looked at my letter, looked at my resume. I worked, writing press releases while I was still in school. Had worked on a newspaper, had done a weekly comic strip, and had sold a few short stories. And they, invited me down for an interview, and they gave me a job on staff. So I started working at Archie Comics. The very first job I had, I was opening up the letters to Dear Betty and Veronica. Then I started to proofread and eventually started to write the one-page gags for Archie, and then started to write, 5-page stories and 6-page stories. And at a certain point, I graduated up to 11-page stories. It was, there was no stopping me then.
How do you think that the internet and digital media has actually affected the industry?
It's very fascinating. Now, in many regards, I look at digital media as just a delivery system. Many years ago, they used to have, people, when they would write a story, they'd do it on stone tablets. But stone tablets were kind of hard to, walk around with, so they changed the delivery system to illustrated manuscripts. But these things were also giant size, so eventually they invented the printing press, and then we had books. And then eventually we had magazines, and now we have digital. It's just different delivery systems, for the same material. The internet, however, has kind of changed the way people look at content, because pretty well anybody can be a content creator. Anybody can create their own comic book and put it online. anybody can write their own short story and put it online. So everybody is creating content. And it's making it hard for guys like me who really want to get actually paid for things to keep getting paid.
I can understand that. How do you think the comic book characters and the stories transition into some of the animated series and bigger budget films and television shows these days?
Well, I think it all depends on the character. I think a character like Spider-Man is versatile enough so that you can have him in the comic books and have him in animation. In animation, you simplify the costume, you simplify the storylines, and then you can do some very interesting things in terms of the motion pictures. Out of 5 motion pictures, I think they've got it right at least twice.
Have you got any current projects that you're working on?
Well, my most recent project was a project for Archie Comics. After all these years, I'm full circle. I'm back to doing some writing for Archie again. And I don't know if you've heard, but they're going to do a brand new version of Archie, more teen angst, more serious, that sort of thing.
Wow.
And they decided that they want to have one last farewell issue to the Archie that you and I grew up with. The slapstick Archie, the goofball Archie. Mm-hmm. And coincidentally, it's Archie number 666. And they gave me the greatest honor that I've had in recent weeks. They called me up and asked me if I would write Archie 666. They came up with an incredible premise that Archie I know you'll be shocked, has gotten into trouble in school yet again and is about to get his 666th detention, a new world record, and chaos goes from there. So I hope you'll pick up Archie 666. It'll be your last chance to see the Archie you grew up with.
Well, I'd like to thank you for joining us on Bordello of Horror today. It's been a pleasure speaking with you. Is there anything else you'd like to add?
I hope the readers have had as much fun with my material as I've had producing it. Thanks for being there, everyone.
All right. Thank you very much, Tom.
Thank you.